So Mr. Ptolemy, can you just give me a brief overview of like how long you've been here and just any backstory information that you would find valid to this topic?
Yeah. Well, as a teacher, this is my first year, so I started back in August. But as a student, I began here at Regis Jesuit in 2003, and I graduated in 2007.
So can you tell me like your favorite memory of high school?
Lots come to mind. I think there was a Jesuit here named Father Tom Valaquette. He recently passed away. But I remember being on retreat with him at the Mother Cabrini Shrine, and in his later years we were playing charades. And I, to this day, don't remember what he was acting out, but he found himself laying belly down on the floor with his arms and legs extended, flopping around like some sort of fish. And so to see Father Tom, who was defined by his cane, that was kind of something that was attached to him. To see a man, kind of losing his mobility, be on the floor in a very agile fashion was a pretty fun memory for me.
So when you were at Regis Jesuit as a student, how did you see the Brotherhood?
I saw it as existing. I think obviously it's a term we came to be very familiar with. And as a teacher, I hear it thrown around a lot. And sometimes I, kind of wonder what that means and what that means to each person. I think for me, as I developed through my time here at Regis Jesuit, it changed. I think as a freshman and a sophomore, I had a lot of good friends. We had a lot of fun. A lot of good memories were made. But as we progressed into our junior and senior year, I think that brotherhood deepened and strengthened and kind of took on a new identity and really was a strong part of my experience at Regis Jesuit. Close friends, brothers that I could turn to. It was much more than just the camaraderie and the fun that we had in the hallways. There was a depth that we found in all of our relationships.
So how often do you see your high school friends?
My high school friends are still my closest friends to this day. A lot of them came to college with me. We went to Gonzaga University together, but having moved back to Denver, I see them quite often, and we're pretty committed to setting aside time in our years to visit each other and to make trips to see each other. So even when we went off to college and were scattered across the country, we made strong efforts to get back together and to stay connected. So to this day, my high school buddies are still my closest friends.
So what are your thoughts on the iPads at the school?
I have a lot of thoughts on them. So I taught for 2 years at Gonzaga Preparatory High School in Spokane, Washington, and we had iPads last year. It was our first year with those. So I'm not new to it, so I'm still developing my opinions. I think there's pros and cons like there is with most things. So I'm still determining how I feel about it. I think I'm hopeful. I think there's opportunities for the iPads to enhance education and to enhance the classroom experience. But at the same time, I've got my questions, and I kind of wonder how they fit into the education process, how they're helping our students grow, how they fit into our mission. And so there is good and there is bad. I'm still kind of wrestling with where I fall on the spectrum. But I think socially, I think development-wise, I think it is difficult. But at the same time, I find value in the iPads in that when our students leave Regis Jesuit, they're not going to leave technology. So I think it's our job as a Jesuit institution to educate our students how to interact with technology in the future, how they're going to combat technology as far as their faith and spirituality. How are they going to still give themselves time for silence and reflection and intentionality with their faith, with the presence of technology. So I think it's a necessary part of our school. That's where our society is going. That's where education is going. And I think we need to exist in the middle of that, teaching our students how to have a healthy relationship with technology, how to be disciplined in using it appropriately and effectively, and how to enhance their academic and social experience.
So is there anything specific that you believe the iPad adds or takes away from the Regis Jesuit community?
Yeah, I think, my experience with the iPads socially is kind of my biggest concern. Just seeing the way that the iPads have transformed our hallways has given me a lot to think about. Having been a student here, I don't remember specifically what our passing periods looked like and our lunches looked like, but we weren't sitting on iPads because they didn't exist. And so I kind of question how that's affecting the relationships with our students at Regis. Are they still able to develop this brotherhood, this depth, when they're so tied up with their technology, whether it's their academics or the gaming? It's just a question I have, is how is this affecting their relationships? And so I don't know. I think there's good to come of the iPads, and I think that the camaraderie still exists, and they're developing friendships around the iPad and around these games. I'm not, quick to dismiss that, because I know our students are defending that, and they do have good arguments. But at the same time, I am just questioning where our society's going in general with the human relationship and how technology affects that, and where we're headed.
So in your class, does the iPad positively or negatively impact the environment of the classroom?
I think part of that responsibility falls on me. I think as I develop as a teacher in this technological world, I think I'll develop better tools and ways to incorporate it in the classroom. So I'm hopeful about that, and I kind of put some of the responsibility on me. At this point, though, I don't find it helpful in our discussions. I know that I value the discussions in my classroom, and what I'm struggling with is having the contact with my students and the contact the students are having with each other. I think it's tough to look up and see, if we do a reflection or we do an activity on the iPad and then we move into discussion and they need to use, the iPad as a reference, they really struggle to divert their attention away from the iPad. And so we lose eye contact, we lose kind of this warmth that exists in a conversation. And so that's my biggest thing is, as a teacher, I see it's not that they're playing games or not that they're distracted, but I kind of just lose the contact that I've previously had with students. The eye contact is much more limited. There's just kind of an element, there's a barrier between myself and my students, as well as between students and students. And right now, I think that's kind of the thing I'm most focused on is how to engage with my students and how to have my students engage with each other while still having the iPad present.
So, in your opinion, how do you think we should address the issues with the iPad? Like earlier you said that you don't remember what your hallways were like, but now you see everyone on the iPad. So how would you combat that in our society?
And that's tough. I know everyone, is trying to think up solutions and trying to think of the best way. I don't know the best answer. I think that going back to my point about, we live in a technological world, I don't necessarily think that taking them away completely or restricting the use is really the best method of teaching. I think that it needs to be a learning experience, and it needs to include the students in that process. I think that they're going to realize that when they leave Regis, most people aren't going to ever say, you need to put your iPad away, you need to put your computer away, you need to put your technology away and focus. Your bosses aren't going to tell you that, your professors probably aren't going to tell you that. So, I think my concern is, how do we teach our students how to interact in a healthy way with the technology? So I don't have a great answer at this point. I think providing them opportunities and space to disconnect completely from the iPad is a good option. I think that the students want that, and they want to separate themselves from the iPad. I've heard that coming from our students, but I don't know if they feel that they have the resources or feel that they have the opportunity to separate themselves. So I think a certain amount of enabling our students or giving the students the opportunity to stay off the iPad is important. Not necessarily saying you can't have that, but saying we're going to do this, and we don't want iPads to be present. I think we're still restricting, but it's kind of it's empowering them to shut off their devices and to do something outside of their technology. So I don't know the best way. I personally don't think that we should or need to eliminate the iPad. Again, I think as a Jesuit school, our mission and our intent is to educate, the world's leaders and educate the future leaders of our country and of our world. And the reality is, we're doing them a disservice if we give them the idea that technology is not going to be present. And so I think this is exactly where we need to exist. Whether or not it's the perfect answer to education, I think that the real learning tool here is interaction with the iPad. And I think that needs to happen. So I can tell you what I don't think we should do. I don't think we should take away the iPad. I don't think it needs to be eliminated from the school setting. But at the same time, I think that there is a need and an opportunity to separate from the iPad at times and to reinforce human relationships and communication, and not to let us lose sight of the humanity of each other and see each other as simply beings attached to a device. And so we need to be intentional about how we approach it. I don't know the best response, but I think we're in the right place. I think Regis Jesuit is in a good place with the iPads. I think we have a lot of improving and a lot of reflecting to do, but I think we need to be on the iPads.
Do you have any final thoughts to leave both the freshmen, the sophomores, and the upperclassmen about the development of the Brotherhood with this new technological tool?
Yeah, and I'm not extremely concerned about the Regis community. I think there is some concern just addressing how the iPad's going to affect our community. This is brand new, and I think this is one of the biggest advancements or changes in education that anyone's seen in a long time. And so there's going to be a level of discomfort with that, and there's going to be a lot of reflecting and questioning surrounding that. So, I think my advice is to keep asking the deeper questions, and how is this affecting your relationships with your friends, with your family, and really questioning that. And is this enhancing or is this taking away from the Brotherhood? I think, in my experience, everyone wants to experience the Brotherhood. They know it exists. They want to be a part of it. But I think it's important that we don't lose the depth. We don't lose the true genuineness of the Brotherhood because of the iPad. I see a lot of shallow relationships that might be developed as a result of playing Madden together. If there's no depth attached with that camaraderie or the time spent together doing that, then I don't think we're really we're reaching the Brotherhood that needs to exist. And I think there's still systems in place at Regis, the retreats, the extracurriculars. There's stuff in place that's going to continue to push the Brotherhood and to enable that to exist. I don't think the iPad's going to change that. But I think at the same time, I think our students, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, just need to be intentional and recognize if that's taking away from the relationships that they want to have and the depth that they want to have with each other and with the world.
Well, thank you for your time, and we in the Student Council really appreciate you helping us out with this.